Hey everyone, Mystical Mark here. So this will be your intuitive astrology forecast for November 16th to the 22nd of 2025. In this video, I will intuitively tune into my own higher self to get the overall energetic vibe of both the major and minor aspects that will be occurring this week astrologically. And then at the end of the video, I will kind of tune in for an overall energy that will just be like straight intuitive after we go over everything. Okay, of course, as a reminder, what I do here is mundane astrology. This means the astrology that affects us all globally, as in it could be like politically, economically, that kind of stuff. This is not an all signs or a sun sign forecast or anything like that. I don't do that because, to put it simply, well, my guidance has been always that that's just simply not accurate. And yeah, it's just it's too watered down there. You need, if you want something personal for you, you have to get a personal reading because you're a unique individual person. You need to take into account your entire chart. So if you're just focusing on your sun sign or even just your big three, you're just kind of really missing the point. Not intending to be rude, but didn't want to make people aware that you need to take into account your entire chart. Okay, which is why I just do mundane astrology like this, because anything else, I'd just be bullshitting you if I said it, to be honest. Okay, and that's why I'm not here to bullshit you. I'm here to provide this with integrity and do the best that I can do. Alright, with all that being said, of course, as I say at the beginning of all of my videos, my guidance has been and likely always will be, astrology is an energetic template conducive to certain things. Okay, the analogy they gave me is the astrology chart, or that template, is like a math formula, okay? And there's variables that exist within that formula, and those variables we're able to change, all right? Because we have free will, okay? So, and because I do these intuitively, anything that comes through in these videos regarding a future prediction of events or anything like that is always 100% subject to change, okay? I record these videos ahead of time. Decisions change, people change, things change, whatever, due to free will, because you have free will. Okay? Or we all have free will. Alright? So I just want to put that out there. Yeah. Anyways, I think with all that being said, we can get into the charts for this week. So let me just make sure everything's good here, load it up on my end, and then we'll get started. Okay. So, start here on Sunday, November 16th. First thing on my list here is we're going to have Mars here in Sagittarius will be in sesqui-square to Chiron retrograde in Aries. There's action being taken here. Let me just kind of feel into... I'm feeling more specifically around Trump. Okay, what I'm getting is this Chiron and Aries can deal with like aspects of sovereignty or wants to sovereignty, etc. And, you know, he's the big proponent of America, okay, and so I feel like there's something related to that. That Mars in Sagittarius is taking action kind of more on a global scale. This could relate to the sovereignty of the United States in some way. All right, so I'm just going to leave it at that. Well, at least in terms of that. Is there anything else to... It's just, I get iffy when talking about him. Like, I'm saying it, the guidance as I get it, but obviously, he's a very controversial figure, and I'm not here to engage in political division or anything like that, okay? That's not what I'm here for. I'm just saying it as it comes and what I'm getting here, all right? I'm not taking any sides. I'm just the messenger, okay? I'm just the messenger. That's what I'm going to say. All right, so it feels like it does feel like there's a wound of sovereignty there, of independence, of something surrounding that. It's sovereignty. What I feel is the word is sovereignty. Wound of sovereignty. And what I get is, in my mind, I can just see him up on like a podium or something, or whether this happens specifically like this or not, I don't know. But he's saying something about this. Okay, and there's action being taken surrounding this. All right, this may not specifically happen on Sunday, okay, because obviously a lot of stuff doesn't happen on Sunday, but this energy exists a few days before and a few days after. Okay, so just keep that in mind, that there's something surrounding that. Anything else with this? It feels like it kind of maybe, there's obviously other leaders involved. I don't know if it's like maybe triggers them, or he stirs the pot. Okay, it's stirring the pot is what. There's definitely something here surrounding him stirring the pot regarding this aspect of sovereignty. I'm just going to leave it there. Okay. Let's go to next on the list here. We're going to have Sun, now 24 degrees Scorpio, in trine to a Jupiter retrograde. I feel... Sorry if it takes me a minute here, because I'm trying to articulate everything that I'm getting. I initially felt an aspect of like hominess, that hominess of Cancer. I don't know why, it feels like it's transforming it back into that space. That Sun in Scorpio, that aspect of transformation. This could be like maybe tower moments, transforming, healing, something like that. Okay, I don't think it's really tower moments, but it's more of like it's a transformation. But it feels like back into whatever this homey type of this comfort homey type of feeling is. What in the hell? Do you have anything specific? Anything else related to... Comfortable to live again. Okay, I said when Jupiter went retrograde that there's something coming back to us. I don't know if this is related to it, but it just feels like comfortable to live again. How exactly that are you? I was asking how exactly is this going to like? Because I'm getting like a no. Like it's almost like that's all we're gonna say. Okay, because in this I can't just say everything because things haven't played out yet, number one. Number two, they're like I said, stuff may change, or like we need to experience it as well. Okay, so I do getting a kind of a heads up on what something may be or how this could work or what at least the current plan is, but you can only say certain things. It's like, do I say this? It's like I'm kind of being given like the analogy of war. Like, do you want to release all of your plans to the enemy of what you're going to do? Like, no. So it's like you can have maybe a general idea of, oh, it's going to be maybe surrounding this or that or whatever, but you still have no freaking clue of what the hell is going to happen, because ultimately we're also here to have the experience, right? So we can't just be told exactly, oh, this is going to happen. First of all, that's a fucking load of shit, because if you're coming on here, if somebody's coming on here and you're saying this will happen and blah, 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 first of all, no, fuck you, you're an idiot, because everything is always subject to change due to free will. 100%. Yes, there may be an end goal that it's like, yes, this will be achieved, this is our goal, however long it takes to get there. However, it could be take this long, this long, this long, this long, like it could take, okay, like there's different paths to get to the same destination. All right. So, and as I say at the beginning of these videos, what I get through is always subject to change. Okay, it always is. All right. So there is no definitive thing that is going to be like, well, maybe as I'm saying this video, there's a definitive thing that is maybe set to happen for this week. However, that can change. Okay. I don't know exactly where I was going with this, but I think what I'm saying is it's like, okay, they're reminding me again. I'm only being told certain things because we're meant to experience it as it comes. And to just tell you is utterly pointless, because then why would you incarnate and live here in the first place? You can get a heads up. You can have somewhat of an understanding coming into this, like a GPS map or something else, whatever, your own intuition, guidance you feel to go here, there, whatever. But it's ultimately still about the experience. You're living in a physical world, in a physical body, in a physical reality, and you need to experience physically things as they come and as they happen, and so on and so on. So that is why I don't get told everything, okay? You'll get told it as it comes. You need to experience it as it comes. You'll get the guidance that you need, when you need it, how you need it, whatever, as it comes. Okay? All right, I think I can move on from this now. However, I don't think that there is much else to say in terms of that Sun and trine to Jupiter, because, yeah. Whatever, something homey, feels like there's transformation and coming back to us in whatever way. However that unfolds, I have no clue. Maybe it's, I don't know, I got the feeling of like maybe a bit like War and Peace. Maybe there's something surrounding that is changing, transforming, ending, or a potential, okay? Because again, those subjects, those can be very hard to deal with. So at least there's a potential for that here. Possibly with this. Don't quote me on that, but that's something that I can feel maybe surrounding that. But I'm just going to leave it at that. I'm not going to dive into this too much beyond that, okay? Because they're probably not going to tell me anyway. Moving on to Monday the 17th. So Monday the 17th, we're going to have the Sun here now in trine to Saturn retrograde. Again, what this feels like is some ending of control. What I feel like is these are control structures that are unseen. I'm getting this aspect of Pisces again, and with this aspect of like deception. And these are control structures that are unseen. So we may not even know that this is occurring, okay? But what it feels like is these control structures are, what I get is like this dark enemy like flailing about, but as it's like sinking down, and it doesn't stand a chance. It's trying to fight for its dear life, but it doesn't stand a chance. It is sinking, it is dying, it is going away. I'm getting drawn back to the fact that there is a very higher vibrational energy that is working, that is using this Scorpio energy in a very positive way. What I feel like is, word I heard is to end to transform, okay? It's using it to end something in terms of whatever these control structures are. But that end comes through that aspect of like transformation. What I'm getting is Scorpio rules death. Take that as you will. However, there are certain things that need to end in terms of those control structures. So again, what we may be seeing in the world, in the news or whatever, may not reflect exactly necessarily what is actually going on, especially behind the scenes. Okay, that's all I'm going to say about that. We also are going to have Jupiter in trine to Saturn as well. Actually, no, we're not. That is just a shift in sorry, the app I use shows where aspects peak, and then it also shows shifts between waxing and waning. It's because Jupiter is retrograde, is what it is, and so it's moving back. It doesn't, that it's just a shift in its movement. It's not anything else. However, Jupiter is in fact in trine to Saturn, but it is just a shift in that. Sorry, I wasn't paying enough attention. Okay, next up here, we also have, where are we here? Mercury in sextile to Pluto. Mercury retrograde in sextile to Pluto. Again, this is going over what needs to transform and change. I said it before, Mercury shadow, and I've said it when Mercury went retrograde. This is going over where we need to transform and change, talking about where we're going to move forward into the future, but maybe being aware or realizing it. It doesn't necessarily feel like it's at the forefront of things. This feels like it's maybe conversations that happen behind the scenes. It feels big though, like political figures or governments or things that are talking, but we may not actually see those conversations or even be privy to those conversations. Excuse me. So maybe pay attention to that. So yeah, so just be aware of that. But it's about, it's almost like the transformation, and this feels like deep, heavy stuff. There's a lot going on from what I feel here. There's a lot going on that we simply don't know. And that we simply can't see. But it's leading to ultimately big change. There's an eventuality of some kind of larger scale transformation here. But there's a lot currently going on now behind the scenes that is eventually leading to this. Okay. That's Monday the 17th. Let's move on to Tuesday the 18th here. Of course, this is when we're going to have Mercury retrograding back into Scorpio. But before we get to that, that doesn't happen until in the middle of the night. Well, not the middle of the night, 9:19 p.m. It looks like, if you see on the app here, it looks like it's close to the middle of the night, but anyway. Looks can be deceiving until I look at the actual time. So let's start off here. We're going to have on this day Mars in this sesqui-square to Jupiter. What I feel is like there's this action taken. It almost feels like on a more global level to bring to bring something back, whatever that Jupiter retrograde is. And I'm not being shown specifics on that stuff, okay? For whatever reason. It feels like there's something going on behind. Again, it feels like there's work being done behind the scenes. Will we see it during this? Is likely, but I have no idea what the hell it is. And it feels like it's something that has been being worked on that we don't see. But there's action being taken on that. What I kind of get is we see the tip of the iceberg, but we don't see everything. I'm getting kind of like the vastness of Jupiter, and we're only seeing it's like you're only seeing the red spot, you're not seeing the rest of the planet. In terms of the tip of the iceberg analogy surrounding that, in terms of, okay, maybe the red spot is Mars, but in terms of the action that is being taken there, okay? So we're only seeing the tip of the iceberg, we're not seeing everything. Also on this day, we're going to have the Sun here in conjunction to Black Moon Lilith at the end of Scorpio here. She's helping in a very intense and almost feels like an extreme way for transformation. This feels very positive, though. It's like no longer being outcasted. Because that's kind of that Black Moon Lilith energy, is that strong feminine energy that was cast aside, outcast. But the light, the positive energy is working with her. She's working with that, because she always really was with that, to help to transform. But it's that intense energy. Of maybe those who are outcasted or those whatever. I don't know all I feel is there's a positive aspect to this intense, transformative, strong, outcasted feminine energy that is really helping in a positive way to transform. To transform, to change, to help, to push. This, what I'm feeling now again, is this may not be fully visible to the world, okay? There's a lot that's still attempted to be hidden. Because they don't want you to see the atrocities that they have done. Okay. But that what I get is there's a lot of positive energy that is helping to augment that. I don't know if that's the right word. It's helping to basically get rid of that, transform that, to offset that, to bring in more of that positivity, but it's using the Scorpio energy to help to what I get is that aspect of ending again, to end it. It's almost like to kill it, but this isn't a bad killing. This video is weird. But it's an ending that is necessary in order to bring in a sense of more like positivity, I guess. Okay. Let's move on to... we're also going to have Venus here in sesquisquare to Neptune. Okay. With that Neptune again, I get this more of a softening energy, softening to love. I feel an intense, almost Lilith energy. Like I said before with Venus coming into Scorpio, I feel an almost intense Lilith-like energy with that Venus in Scorpio. With these people, I get people helping to transform. But I get it's not necessarily seen. But it's almost like it's bringing in more of that softening energy. A lot of this feels unseen. A lot of this feels unseen. Okay? It's almost like this stuff is happening behind the scenes in the background, despite what we may be shown or what we may be seeing. Okay, I'm just going to leave it at that. We're also going to have, Juno here, squaring the nodes. Okay. Okay, this feels like global partnerships. So whether this is business contracts, political partnerships, agreements, those kinds of things that are now... So it's like we're moving from the previous old space into a new space. So whether this relates to whether this is like partnerships between certain countries based on like manufacturing or imports, or even economically, or related to tariffs or whatever, it almost seems like new partnerships that are moving forward. It's like the old way that we used to have this is shifting towards a new path. Okay? And that's what it feels like with this energy. With Juno in Sagittarius. Sagittarius kind of representing the world. With Juno there, this aspect of those committed partnerships, contracts, those kinds of things. In terms of its shift forward now in a new direction. But these are agreements that have already been being worked on, but now the shift is like shifting forward here. Okay, so that's Tuesday the 18th. Let's move on to Wednesday the 19th here. Holy crap, there's a lot going on. Okay. And then overnight, so this day and the night of this day and into the next will be that new moon in Scorpio. So I'll touch on it for the 20th, but so I won't include it in this day, but it's kind of for both days, because you're really going to feel the build up probably on the 19th, and then you'll feel the rest of it on the 20th, and it's going to kind of depend on where you are in the world, because overnight, what I'm talking about is in like, North America, okay? Whereas if you're on the other side of the world, that's going to be during the day, and you're going to feel whatever that is during your daytime instead of overnight, where we may, in North America, see the effects on 2 different days, whereas in the other side of the world, you may just experience it on the 20th as that occurs, okay? So, anyway, before we get into that, though, let's go over the other aspects for this day. We're going to have Venus making aspects to the node, so trine the south node, trine the north node, sextile the south node. What I get, it's almost like what I talked about, that people aspect of Venus and the transformation is making moves forward, but it's in a new path, in a new direction, but it feels it's unknown, different, but it's extremely positive. It's in a direction in which we haven't experienced before. And it's, of course, letting go what I feel is like the current world's ways of doing things and moving into a new space. But it's almost like there's people helping to transform in some way to create and move forward in this path. How is there... Okay, I'm simply just getting a no in terms of me going further here, so we'll leave it at that. We're also going to have Mercury here in opposition to Uranus, now retrograde in Taurus. I didn't touch on Mercury moving into Scorpio, did I? I totally missed that. Okay, well, let's tune into it now. So, Mercury, I know, I skipped over it. I was going to go at that at the end, and I'm like, wait a minute. Okay, Mercury entering back into Scorpio. It's where we got to change and transform. This may not be happening right away, but like I said, this is happening on maybe a higher government type of a level in terms of discussions, talks, reworking things of how things are needing to be transformed and changed to move forward in the direction, a new direction in which we need to move forward in, okay? And this is a more positive direction in moving forward, is what that is. but it feels very behind the scenes. And basically in terms of what needs to be transformed. Or the discussions are behind the scenes in terms of what needs to be transformed and changed, etc. Okay, that's all I kind of get from that. Now, Mercury opposition Uranus. What I'm feeling is changes that will be made, that need to be made, that will be made. It's like there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It's like we're at this point. What I feel like is at this point where these huge shifts and changes, especially with Uranus and Taurus. Taurus is the bull that's stubborn and doesn't like to move, but these are the big things that need to move, but it feels lighter, it feels easier now to be able to adjust and do these things that need to change. And that could be surrounding whatever these discussions are that are likely occurring that we probably won't see, but are occurring surrounding where we need to move forward in these ways of transformation and change. What I'm getting a lot with this, at least so far, is there's a lot going on behind the scenes that we do not know, understand, or see. Because what I'm getting is this idea of the news and stuff, and it feels very negative, very like it's pushing, it's trying to cover up this that I'm actually talking about here. Okay, so all the negative bullshit in the news and that is just that, it's bullshit. I mean, there may be some things that are like actually happening, but you have to use your own discernment in these things. But in terms of what is actually really going on to change things, we're not being shown. It's attempted to be covered up, but it's on its last legs, basically. It's like a last-ditch effort to try to cover up what is actually going on, but eventually there's an eventuality that what this behind-the-scenes stuff that I'm talking about is going to come to light at some point. And whatever they're trying to do to cover it up, to cover their own asses in protecting themselves from the atrocities that have occurred, that they have done, that it's fruitless for them at this point, but they're doing whatever they can to try. Yeah, but I'm feeling it's fruitless. It's what is that? Resistance is futile. Like it's just they're not gonna win. Okay, let's move on here. We're also going to have Venus in this semi-sextile to Juno. Again, this feels like background partnerships. Background partnerships and commitments that are being made with this newer energy that is coming in that we don't necessarily see. Wow, a lot of this is stuff that we're not seeing, but that is happening behind the scenes. There's people working behind the scenes, and there's partnerships that are either being made or happening, or there's partnerships that are working, but are being made. I feel it's almost like it's being made. But these commitments and partnerships that are being made are happening in a behind the scenes way that we're not seeing. Okay, we're also going to have Mercury in trine to Neptune. What I get from this is actually a sense of softening to love, but peace, really, peace. This is happening behind the scenes again. But we may see, it feels like there might be an inkling of it out in the world as it's surrounding things, because this aspect of peace, we may see stuff surrounding it in terms of maybe inklings of discussions or actions or things that might be attempted to be taken surrounding that kind of stuff based on things that are occurring in our world. But I feel like there's a very positive energy that is assisting with that, more so behind the scenes, and what we see isn't the full picture of what is actually transpiring or going on with that. Okay, that's all I'm going to say about that. Mercury will also be in a biquintile here to Chiron retrograde. I'm getting the word sovereignty again. This feels like stuff that is out there, but that is not really being paid attention to. But is maybe needed to. Surrounding aspects of sovereignty. It's what I get is people don't want to look at it. It's like people are too stressed. There's so much going on, everything else. It's like people don't want to look at it. And I feel like it deals with that wounds. There's a lot that, in order to heal oneself in a lot of ways, you have to do the inner work to actually look at something, face it, heal it, transform it. But it's like there's so much going on and so much stress or whatever that even though it's there, we're not paying attention to it because we're being pushed in so many other doors. There's so much other stuff going on that we can't actually do that kind of work, even though that's extremely beneficial and almost necessary in a lot of ways. That's what that feels like to me. Okay, I'm going to leave that at that as well. We're also going to have the sun in... Where are we here? This quintile to the south node as well. What I feel like with this is there is behind the scenes stuff. I feel like there's clues that exist within reality with this, for whatever reason, about what is actually being transformed and changed behind the scenes in terms of letting go of the world that is not actually serving us. But this almost feels like the people that are doing this, we almost don't even know that they exist. But it's almost like we get inklings that something is happening with this in terms of letting go of this old stuff. But it's very new. It's something that is... like very... It's almost like unknown to us is what I want to say, but it kind of relates to maybe that North Node in Pisces energy on that new path, even though we're not really talking about this. But it's like this letting go of that stuff to get there. It's like there's a transformation that is going on, that is currently being worked on behind the scenes for this kind of stuff. To let go of our current world things that aren't serving us, but there's inklings of it that maybe we will see poking through, but that is happening on a behind the scenes kind of a level. This video is wild. Okay, let's move on to the 20th here, where we're gonna have this new moon. Okay, let me talk about the other aspects here first, and then I'm gonna talk about this new moon in Scorpio. Because we're also on this new moon, the sun is going to be conjunct Mercury, so there's going to be the Sun-Mercury Cazimi moment. We'll talk about that with the new moon in Scorpio, and then we're also going to have Uranus in sextile to Neptune. Let me pull it up. So let me start with this one, Uranus sextile Neptune. This feels like stuff out of left field that is surrounding aspects of change. Because with that Neptunian stuff, especially in Pisces, that aspect of like what's hidden or unknown, I feel like more like what's hidden and then it just kind of shows up. Especially with mixed with Uranus, like just kind of shows up. That's like there's this stuff out of left field. But this is dealing with things that have needed to occur, needed to change, or that has been worked on or happening because these planets are retrograde, okay? So we're dealing with this stuff that is needed to be dealt with. It may seem kind of somewhat new to us, but really it's kind of been being dealt with, and it just kind of maybe shows up out of nowhere with this. I think I'll leave that at that. Let's move on to this new moon now with this sun in conjunction to Mercury, or the sun Mercury, because give me a moment. This is in opposition to Uranus too, so okay. I'm getting a strong awareness with this of transformation and change, but this feels like it's big. I feel like this is relating to this Uranus and Taurus energy of which I talked about when Uranus was going to retrograde back into Taurus, that you have no choice now but to change. And it's big things shifting that are more easily shifted now. And it's almost like it's being backed by this sun in Scorpio. And with this conjunction to Mercury retrograde, this bigger awareness now of the transformations that maybe have been occurring, but maybe we didn't see them or weren't known. Okay, maybe a part of all of this stuff happening behind the scenes that we don't know is maybe now we're starting to be shown this stuff. That now it's almost like an awakening moment, maybe for some, if not a lot of people, surrounding an awareness of the changes that have attempted or have been being worked, not really attempted, have been being worked on behind the scenes, that is now kind of coming to light in some way. It feels kind of like shocking, but this is positive. The underlying to this is positive. There's an essence or a sense of like a transformation here and change, but and that's what it really ultimately feels like. But there's an awareness here as well as maybe things that have occurred behind the scenes to make this happen. Okay, so just to go over, okay, I feel there's a very strong energy here surrounding this transformation and change. And it's like this now can push forward. Like I feel that Uranus and Taurus of like you have no choice but to change. And it's like the blocks are now almost gone. Like before when Uranus was in Taurus, it's like there was blocks there and you needed a cattle prod to move the bull. It's like now they're gone and the bull has been tamed and it's able to move now. This transformation and change. And it's like maybe an awareness of maybe what has been occurring or what has been occurring or what has occurred, whatever, behind the scenes surrounding all of this. Anyway, that's the new moon in Scorpio. Let's move on to Friday. Friday the 21st, where we're going to have the sun entering into Sagittarius. Okay, I'm going to talk about this first. So we're going to have the sun coming into Sagittarius. My guidance is really to not touch much on the sun because people tend to put their focus there. Like, oh, I'm a Cancer because I have sun in Cancer. It's like, well, no. I mean, yeah, you have Sun in Cancer, but you have an entire chart. If you're just looking at that part of it, you just, no. Not to be rude to anyone, but what I'm really trying to tell you is that there is a hell of a lot more that you should be looking at surrounding that, because you're being extremely misled by only focusing on your sun sign, is what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to wake people up to the fact that you are being extremely misled by only focusing on your sun sign or your big three or whatever. Look at the entire chart. Look at the entire chart. Because, yeah, you are being extremely misled by solely focusing on that. And my guidance has been very clear to steer away from that kind of stuff. Okay? Part of that is because I initially did try to do sun sign astrology until I realized through doing it that it was a load of shit. It's so like, it's almost like you're practically making stuff up at that point. When you're saying, oh, Sagittarius, this is going to be you for this week. It's like, you're like, literally, it's so like I can't even put into words. It's so ridiculous that, because I've done them, it's so ridiculous that you might as well just be making it up and just telling people straight bullshit, because that's almost inherently what it is. And I've said this before, including at the beginning of this video. If you want something that's personal to you, you have to get a personal reading. Or at the very least, look at your entire fucking chart and take into account everything. Okay? And look at it that way, because simply focusing on one or two or three aspects of it without taking into account everything else, you're just missing the point. And I'm not trying to be rude with this at all. I'm trying to awaken it to you that you have been duped, you've been deceived into believing that that's all that there is to it, when no, it's not. Now, Sun entering into Sagittarius, I'm already feeling and I already know the answer to this. I'm already feeling it. It feels like Sagittarius. The Sun is the illuminator. It illuminates the sign that it's in, the energy. It just feels like Sagittarius. That is it. Now you could say, well, in our chart, if it's the Sun there, then it illuminates that energy, so we must really be that. Okay, what about what your Sun is aspecting? What about the house that it's in? What about all that other stuff? What about the fact that you may have stronger energy in your chart that you express more in your life than what your Sun sign actually is? That's what I'm saying. That's why you cannot solely rely on that 100%. And I would say honestly, for most people, that's pretty much the case. Like, it depends where your Sun is, what it's aspecting, etc. But that's just what I'm kind of getting now. It's an alignment towards the month or the other place where you needed to be born in. You need to be born at that time where the Sun was, because you wanted actually the other energies surrounding it. You wanted your Venus sign, your Mercury sign, your Mars sign. All you needed that combination, the unique combination of all those energies, those other energies, in order to become and create the unique person that you were. So you needed to come in at that time, but that Sun may be completely irrelevant to a lot of those other things and why you wanted to come in at that time too, because you needed those other energies to create the character of you that you are here for. Okay, so, and to just focus, what I'm getting is like that Sun aspect is to water it down, to basically disempower you so that you don't actually have a look at this stuff and realize and begin to understand why you actually came here and what you were actually meant to do and be, etc. Because having a look at this from a legitimate perspective and point can actually be very powerful and very empowering to you to actually be the person that you are. But to a world that wants to just have you work at fucking McDonald's for minimum wage for the rest of your life, They don't give a fuck about that, and so they just want you to look at your sun sign and not realize the extremely powerful being that you are, and that you created this unique individual character to have this unique individual life and have these unique individual experiences that you wanted to have on a soul level that you came here for, instead of just flipping burgers for angry Karens at the counter. Okay? That's all I'm going to say about that. Moving on. We're going to have Mercury here in quintile to the South Node. Yeah, what I get more is talks about this transformation and moving forward. The words that I get are leaving behind, in terms of leaving behind. Excuse me, so pay attention to that. Usually I'm going to pay attention to that. Leaving behind these old things in order to transform and move in a new direction. Okay? That's all I'm really going to say about that, because I feel like I'm just reiterating a lot of what I've already talked about. And these energies are just relating to each other. So we're also going to have the Sun in biquintile to Chiron. It still feels like stuff that people don't want to look at. It almost kind of feels like they're being forced to, though. What I talked about before, with that other biquintile to Chiron. Was it a biquintile? I think so. Let me have a look. Something aspecting Chiron. That was Mercury. And now, I don't know, for some reason, it's like people are being forced to look at it. In terms of that aspect of sovereignty, etc. Okay, I'm just going to leave that at that. We're also going to have the Sun in, where are we? In opposition to Uranus on this day as well. That's obvious. Yeah, okay. Remember, this is all before the Sun moves into Sagittarius. So we're still with the Scorpio energy, but I feel a lot surrounding with the same thing from that new moon in Scorpio, and that this is dealing a lot with this transformation and this change. It feels big. It feels really big to me, but it feels very positive. It's like, whoa, but it feels very positive. It's sometimes hard to articulate how I feel, guys, so if I look like I'm struggling to speak, it's because I am. Because verbal language does not contain the words or the right ways to express how I feel or how I'm receiving this stuff. It's very limited in its expression, and I'm trying to do my best here. But it's hard to match exactly what I feel with this. We're also going to have the Sun in trine to Neptune here as well. It feels almost like hidden help or unknown help. From a different realm, another level, I don't know. In terms of helping to transform or move forward, etc. with that kind of stuff. Also, we're going to have Mercury in conjunction to Black Moon Lilith. What I feel is an intensity surrounding conversation with that. Almost like saying something for what it is, but that it leads to it needs to be said, is what I feel, and then it leads to a positive resolution in some way. Okay, so that's Friday. Let's move on to Saturday, the 22nd here. We're going to have Pluto here in semi-square to Juno. I almost feel like endings in certain partnerships. remember, this is on a global scale, whether it's politically, economically, or whatever. I feel like endings in certain partnerships due to a realization of things in some way. Also, we're going to have Venus in a quintile here to Pluto. I feel like this feels very positive. It's very positive people, what I feel is behind the scenes and helping ultimately with the transformation. It almost feels like it could be related to that Pluto semi-square Juno that's helping with that, because whatever those partnerships were maybe needed to end or needed to be transformed or changed or whatever. But I feel like a very positive part of whatever these people that are helping, but it's behind the scenes. It's like they're the support kind of in helping with this transformation and such to occur. We're also going to have the South Node here in this quintile to Black Moon Lilith. Where am I? Here. Lilith, quintile, South Node. I feel this intensity. There's a strong intensity to her energy there, but again, it feels like she's helping. That energy is helping to really leave the old stuff behind, to let it go. But this is happening on a very more of like a supportive level that is more so unseen to us, is what that feels like to me. We're also going to have Mercury here in trine to Saturn and in trine to Jupiter. Okay, so we've kind of got a grand trine going on here, but okay, let me just Mercury. Okay, what it feels like with this is trine to Saturn, trine to Jupiter. Trine to Saturn is like getting rid of those old control structures, and through that bringing back whatever Jupiter is to be bringing back through this retrograde. So it's kind of ending what needs to be ended with that Saturn retrograde in Pisces, bringing back what needs to be brought back with that Jupiter retrograde. And with this Mercury retrograde, it's kind of like showing up to be like, okay, like here this is, now what are we going to do about it? And it's about relooking at, reworking, and reintegrating whatever these things are, is what that feels like to me. Okay. That's it for the astrology portion of this video. Let me just tune in now here to overall energy of this week. Okay, I'm feeling drawn more to that new moon in Scorpio, really. I feel like that is the major prominent energy for this week. I'm trying to like ask for specifics, anything surrounding that. I just get the energy that I feel surrounding that. I'm not getting anything specific about it on a global level, and I think that's probably on purpose. Because I think whatever that is, we're either meant to feel it or kind of what I'm getting is the potential for it to be thwarted. Okay, so there is, whatever this is, feels very strong, positive aspects of transformation and change. And at least that is the plan. However, there is potential for it. What I'm getting, is it likely to be thwarted? I'm getting no, but there is obviously always that potential there. Anything else to this? In essence, I get what I already talked about through this whole video, is like background activity that is very positive happening behind the scenes that we may not be fully aware of. But the new moon in Scorpio really helps us to maybe enlighten ourselves to be aware of maybe that which has been occurring behind the scenes. for a very positive change in an unknown direction that we're not used to, but it will end up being very positive for us through these big changes or whatever that are ultimately needing to occur and have to change in whatever way. I think that sums up the week. I'm just going to leave it there. If you've made it this far in the video, please leave a purple heart in the comments so that I know you're a real one. Thank you all for watching. Take care, and I hope to see you all in next week's video. Bye.